3:30 p.m. Mountain Time means it is orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. That lovely canned rock music. And oh my God, Mace, I have perhaps the most difficult job in the world today. And of course, I'm kidding. But I will say this. One, we got to do this in 30 minutes. Two, we got a shut your mouth storm to talk about and a lot of things. So let's not be all over the place. Let's pick one thing and like blank it out and then go on to the next thing, because we got a lot of things to get to. So Mace, normally as a host, this is bad to do, but I will just toss it up and say, tell me the first thing you want to talk about, because we have a lot of directions we can go.
Do we want to go most important? We want to go most recent.
Most recent would be Dan Quinn, right?
Yes, let's start there. Dan Quinn out of the mix. Had a second interview lined up with the Colts, already had a second interview with the Cardinals, was still apparently in the mix for the Broncos, although maybe not the favorite, but he's out. He's staying in Dallas, says he wants to win a Super Bowl there. And let's face it, I think he's probably on standby if they get off to a slow start and Jerry Jones moves on from Mike McCarthy.
Right.
They'll probably bring him aboard. There's probably a little understanding there with Dan Quinn, but still, I mean, there is a coach with past experience taking a team to a Super Bowl. There's one coach out of the mix. So your thoughts on that real quick, Cecil, on Dan Quinn not being up for the Broncos this year?
I don't know if I could do it real quick, but I will be somewhat brief since we do have a time constraint. But yeah, the Dan Quinn thing is interesting. He's backed out twice now in 2 years, almost to the day that he's backed out of, like, I'm going to take my name out of the running, thinking like you, I'm sure he's like, Mike McCarthy's on a short leash or thin ice or whatever you want to say. Like, okay. But if you're Dan Quinn, the Cardinal stuff, I've heard some things that made people uncomfortable. Or made Quinn uncomfortable. So he backs out of the Cardinal situation. Wasn't the favorite with the Broncos. There seems to be a favorite, but to me, it's interesting and almost a mistake, in my opinion, unless he gets to take over next year, which with McCarthy, it's always a possibility. But another year, Mace, and another time around the sun where Dan Quinn says, I'm staying with the Cowboys. It's good news for the Cowboys. And, I think it's an opportunity missed for other teams, including the Cardinals and the Broncos.
Yeah, and you wonder what he was uncomfortable about. Was it
Kyler Murray?
Yeah,
Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray's dad. Kyler Murray's dad is like a helicopter parent, like times 1,000.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's, I mean, it shouldn't be a situation where one parent can mess it up. And you know what? Kyler Murray is a talented quarterback, no doubt, but you can't blame Dan Quinn for being choosy. I think the question I have, and it's worth getting to the bottom of in the next few days, how was Dan Quinn's interview with the Broncos? Because there are rumblings and reports that last year's interview was not good for Dan Quinn, and that it very much was pulling himself out rather than being outright rejected. So did he interview better? I would hope he did. I'd hope he learned from last year's lesson. But the other thing also, and I do wonder this, for every coach, considering the Broncos, and this is going to come up as we discuss DeMeco Ryans as well, how much does the situation and landscape in terms of being in the AFC West with Mahomes and Herbert and maybe Tom Brady this coming year, how much does that hurt the Broncos? Because you know what? The Broncos, the ownership has unlimited wealth, but they can't buy their way out of the AFC West, and they can't do what you do in baseball or the Premier League, which is write a bunch of checks to talent and bring in different players to microwave yourself back to relevance. You can't do that in the NFL with a salary cap.
What is more of a hindrance potentially for head coaches, would-be head coaches for the Broncos? Is it the division or is it Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson, you can actually get past within a year, because if he's not the answer, you move on and you cast your line into next year's draft. As I tweeted earlier today, if you have a bad year, You get out from Russell Wilson's contract before the other $37 million of guaranteed money would hit on the 5th day of the next league year, and of the 2024 league year, I should say, and then move heaven and earth. If you're sitting at like the 9th pick or the 8th pick, move heaven and earth to get up in the draft and take Caleb Williams or Drake May. There you go. But that doesn't get you out of the AFC West. It doesn't get you out of having to deal with Patrick Mahomes twice a year. And sorry, Broncos country, Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere for a long time. Unless he has a catastrophic injury, Patrick Mahomes is going to be a problem for the Denver Broncos for maybe the next decade. So
I think that Russell Wilson is a win-win situation. Now, most everyone like Brad here would disagree with me. He's not the long-term solution. Okay. But if you are D'Amico Ryans and you take over this job and Russell Wilson looks better, like he did those last 2 games, you look great. Hey, I fixed Russell Wilson. You still think about the future. If you come in and Russell Wilson doesn't look good or fights the changes that he needs to make, which is basically just play like he used to, then you say, okay, we're moving on. And you can move on after a year. So honestly, I understand. And what we do as talk show hosts, like you have to bring up subjects. Like to me, Russell Wilson's a positive for a potential head coach because it's like, if he works, I look great. If he doesn't work, I can move on.
And you know what? You're basically saying a 3-year process here, right? That I think you should commit to whoever you hire for 3 years. Year 1 is the Russ year. Get him right, get things back on track. Great. Then you march forward for the next few years with Russell Wilson. Don't get him right. Fine. Start the clock in 2024 with a young quarterback. And it's fair to expect if you take a quarterback at the top of the draft by trading up, perhaps, again, trade up, get Drake May, get Caleb Williams. It is fair in this day and age to expect results of some tangible performance and success by the 2nd year. And that would be the 3rd year for the coach. So basically, it's a 3-year, it's 3 years, right? 3 years to know. And you can do that with this year being the Russell Wilson year. You can do that, and then the coach would still have a very fair shot with an elite quarterback in next year's draft class.
Yeah, and I think that's the best plan for the Denver Broncos. And Mace, I will pick subject number 2 since we've already moved off Dan Quinn, which is fine. Okay. He's moved off of us. It's like when
you can't fire me, I quit.
I know it's years and years ago, and it has to be years ago, Mace, because I haven't done this in a while. But like me and my buddies were out at a dance club, trying to pick up girls or whatever. And my one buddy is like, it's not gonna happen, right? He's like, I didn't want to dance with her anyway. I was like, that's all you talked about all night. Like, come on, Dan Quinn. I didn't really want. I'm not even supposed to be here. Like he's Dante from Clerks or something. Like, I'm just going to leave. You guys can't fire me. You guys can't hire me. I'm going to take my name out of the running. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It all started. I think the first to say it was Hervey from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right?
I wanted to be a dentist.
Yeah. That's where the phrase, you can't fire me, I quit, came from. I believe that was him. That's how it entered the pop culture lexicon. So yes, there you go.
We are all here for it. Subject number 2, Sean Payton's got to shut the hell up. Are his sources like, dude, you're not doing yourself any favors, and no matter what, and you got to trade for New Orleans. All these leaks coming from the Sean Payton side of things. We talked about it. Walton Penner Group, you're not getting many leaks. I like that. Sean Payton, it leaks all over the place, man.
And I imagine the Walton Penner Group does not like that one iota, right? They don't like leaks. They're trying to tamp down and what leaks do get out. They want to know basically who's providing the leaks, right? They want to run a tight ship. And you have all sorts of stuff that is coming from the Sean Payton and even like the New Orleans end of it as well. I mean, it's the hunting trip. And oh, by the way, Sean Payton was apparently impressed with Broncos ownership last week and now was uneasy about it. I mean, what that sounds to me like, Cecil, is it sounds like he knows he's not getting the job. It's like when you go into a game and you're a 15-point favorite and you lose, right? You're looking for excuses. He's looking for an excuse. And as I also said earlier today, Great. This means the Broncos aren't going to sacrifice draft capital. Sean Payton is not a first-round pick plus better than some of these coaching candidates. Okay, and I'm glad that we're at the point where we can apparently move past this.
Yes, move past and move on. And Mace, I've often said, and you and I haven't shared this, so I'll share it with you now. And then one day we'll have to share it with some cold pops. But I've always said the movie Swingers with, I think it was Vince Vaughn's like first movie or whatever, young John Favreau. In that movie, it's what I told my son. It's what I've told all my friends. Like in that movie, every guy will be each character at one point. You'll be the heartbroken guy. You'll be the wild guy. You'll be we got to protect our rep, bro. You'll be like that guy, Sue, a boy named Sue. Anyway, there's also the character where they're at the party. He's like, this place is dead anyway, man. Like when they take off to each party, every party they go to, it's wild. And he's like, this place is dead anyway, man. Like, yeah, okay. Sean Payton, you know, I didn't want to be there anyways. I'm uneasy with it. It's kind of infuriating, honestly.
When you don't get into a club like whether it's a dance club or even like a country club, right?
Right.
You don't get it. Oh, I didn't need them anyway. No, screw them. Yeah. I'll do better. I'll do better without you.
Right.
Yeah. That's what it all feels like with Sean Payton today. Like
I've got Fox. I got to take my Fox ball and go home.
And you know what? He's got $10 million a year coming from Fox.
Congrats.
He's building a house in Manhattan Beach.
Way to go.
Yeah, you know what? He doesn't need to be taking this apparent kind of whining on his way out. Although he is having a second interview with the Arizona Cardinals today. I can't see Michael Bidwill hiring Sean Payton. That's really not his style in any way, shape, or form.
No.
So, yeah, okay. I think Sean Payton's going to be back on television this year, back on Fox.
Okay. Mace, we're doing pretty good sticking to topics, so that's good. I appreciate that because we have so much to get to. Let's talk about a place very near and dear to your heart. I think Frank Reich is a great man. I think Frank Reich is a great coach. I think Frank Reich was saddled with Jim Irsay being crazy and, you know, like, we got to make Matt Ryan work. Like, I think Frank Reich to Carolina, and they don't know who the quarterback is, and they might move up from 9-1 or whatever. But like that, my friend, is a solid football move. I really like that for the Carolina Panthers.
And you know what? You say, all right, Frank, we're going to talk about these quarterbacks in the draft. We're gonna go over C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, and I'm sure they'll go over Will Levis as well. Although you and I are not fans of Will Levis. Who do you want, Frank? Who do you want? And if you want Bryce Young, that's great. We will make a deal with the Chicago Bears to get that number 1 pick and get Bryce Young. There you go. We're gonna make this happen. Frank Reich kind of to use a Seinfeldism. It's like he discovered plutonium by accident. He gets fired. He fell upward into a much better job for him in every way, because now effectively he gets to do what he showed he could do so well in Philadelphia. Get a young quarterback, mold him, and develop him. Because you know what? Carson Wentz was on an elite trajectory while Frank Reich was there. When he left, that all ended. And by the time Reich got a hold of him again in Indianapolis, the damage was done. It was too late. I mean, Wentz actually wasn't bad in 2021 for the Colts. Wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. But you also have an owner there who, you know, is very much in, squirrel mode. That doesn't seem to have much of an attention span at this point. So even though Frank Reich is working for another owner who appears to be impetuous, I think he's in a situation where he's actually going to have a chance to succeed, where the roster has got some talent. I think Carolina right now, as we're talking today, assuming that Tom Brady is not back with the Bucs, I think Carolina's the favorite in the NFC South.
And with Reich bringing that balance, bringing that measured approach to things, like, hey, they're going to be a solid team. They'll be right there. And one team has to go to this playoffs from that division with Tom Brady gone, most likely. Put my chips on Carolina. I love it. And I may be wrong. This isn't a Carolina show, and I may be totally wrong. So if I am, tell me. I have a feeling Dave Tepper might be like Arthur Blank. If we remember Arthur Blank, who I do have a lot of affection for, I love that guy. He came into the league, he bought the Falcons. He was like, spend everything. And, you get that little Jerry Jones complex. And then he figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And, he figured it out because they got rid of Matt Ryan and Julio Jones were like two of his boos, right? Like he never wanted to get rid of Julio. He was so loyal to Matt Ryan. He never wanted it. And then he did. Right. So I believe Tepper might be on that blank. And again, I could totally be off. He could totally be like Dan Snyder. He could be like Jerry Jones. But if he can get more on that Arthur Blank, like you get in and you're like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then you realize like, oh, no, I can't do that. Like, I hope that's what Tepper, because let Frank Reich do his thing. Just let him do his thing.
Yeah, I think he will. And there were two coaches the Panthers could have hired that I think would sit very well with their fan base. One of them would have been to give Steve Wilkes, the interim head coach, the job on a full-time basis. And the other was Frank Reich, the original Panthers quarterback back in 1995. So I think they got this one right. And they got it right for where they're going as a franchise because, and this is another thing, you have coach, quarterback, harmony, and development that's on the same page. And it's one reason why, as we get into the next topic, it's interesting to look at DeMeco Ryans when we get into him because the Broncos aren't the only team after him. And there is something very attractive and very functional about a new coach coming in with a rookie quarterback in whom that coach believes.
Edward asked super quick, why didn't Frank get an interview with the Broncos?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I had heard that he was in the mix before they got to the interview process, but don't know why he didn't make the cut to be one of the coaches interviewed. I think they should have interviewed him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Edward, thank you for that. Hey, look, it's my sister, Carrie. How's it going, Carrie? Get back to work. Anyway, it's Orange and Blue today. The DeMeco Ryans thing. There are people saying like, oh, I hope the Eagles win. No. Here's what you should hope for. The 49ers win the Super Bowl. And I'll tell you why. There's already enough people. We've got some in the chat room that are like, this is awful. And the Broncos are, I'm like, everyone's saying, I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that. You have your own opinion. That's fine. I think DeMeco Ryans would be a fine head coach for the Denver Broncos. And really, I don't look at he's a first-time head coach again, because like I've often said, it's like roulette. It's a different spin every time around. But when you look at the Ryans thing, here's how you should look at it. Have them win the Super Bowl, because the naysayers, what happens if Philadelphia embarrasses the 49ers and they could get after Brock Purdy. Purdy showed finally some flaws, as we knew he would.
We talked about that earlier this week.
If they go out there and they wax the 49ers and that 49ers defense, which is hellacious, they unleash hell. If those guys can't stop Jalen Hurts, then DeMeco Ryans is hired. Everyone's going to be like, oh, they can't stop I mean, we've been down this before. So you love DeMeco Ryans. You should love the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. So then you can say, our new coach just won a Super Bowl.
Well, the other thing is also, you think DeMeco Ryans isn't trying to put together a staff, even though he can't officially be the head coach until after the Super Bowl. I mean, we know how back channels work. But again, that being said, my reservation on DeMeco Ryans is on his staff. If we're talking about another level jumping bunch of coaches like we saw this past year in Denver, no, I'm not on board with DeMeco Ryans. But I'll just toss out some names, and some of it is connection, like one degree of separation, 0 degrees of separation, or maybe just kind of or some just logical moves here. But let's say DeMeco Ryans has a staff that includes, just throw some names out here: Anthony Lynn, assistant head coach; Mike Munchak, offensive line. Remember, Munchak was brought in to coach the zone scheme in 2019 with the Broncos. Don't give me this crapola, and it is crapola, that he can only coach gap. That is nonsense. Mike Munchak is a scheme-independent coach. They brought him in under Scangarello, who was coming from the 49ers to be from QB coach to OC. So Yeah, Munchak could still fit very well. So Anthony Lynn, Mike Munchak, and yes, Jerry Rosberg, special teams coordinator, whatever it takes. Make him the highest paid special teams coordinator in the NFL. You have some names like that on the staff. I think I could even get on board with Brian Greasy as a first-time play caller if you've got that sort of experience in important roles, not Dom Capers off in a corner while all the younger coaches think that they have all the answers, but actual wisdom and experience at the core of the decision-making process for a D'Amico Ryan staff. If I see names like that, I'm going to be encouraged. I'm going to be excited about what he would bring if he's the Broncos head coach.
I like it. I don't necessarily like the Anthony Lynn thing. Justin asked,
Well, I didn't say play caller. I didn't say play caller.
Not play caller.
Assistant head coach. Assistant head coach.
Experience.
Right? Experience. Someone who's been a head coach before. Someone who can offer alternatives. Someone to bounce stuff off of. Someone who has seen situations, who's made some mistakes and has learned from those mistakes as well. That's the kind of thing that I am looking for. If I look around that staff and I don't see coaches with a lot of experience, another coaching staff where, with the exception of the guy who's off in the corner, everyone seems to be below the age of 45. If I see that kind of staff, man, I think that the D'Amico Ryans would be a mistake for the Broncos. But if it's a staff with experience, and he should know this, having seen Kyle Shanahan join the 49ers and have coaches like Bobby Turner on his staff, right?
Right.
Yeah. Kyle Shanahan understood the value of having experienced coaches in significant roles that he could bounce stuff off of. Hey, Bobby T, what do you think? People that you trust. So that's what I want to see. And yeah, I did mention Rosberg. There's no Ryans Rosberg connection, but here's another thing I want to see from D'Amico Ryans. I want to see him attack his staff the way Brian Daboll attacked putting his staff together with the New York Giants. That was not a staff of who you know. That was a staff of, I want to get the best coaches, and some of these coaches I may not know, but really know before I get the chance to chat with them. I think like Thomas McGahee, former Broncos assistant, special teams coach. He inherited him from the previous regime with the Giants. Wasn't sure if he was going to hire him. Chatted with him for a few minutes. Knew he had his guy. That's a very good special teams coach, right? I think D'Amico Ryans might chat with Jerry Rosberg for 5 minutes and say, hey, that's a guy I want.
Can you possibly chat with Jerry Rosberg for 5 minutes? One question with him is like 10-minute answer.
You know what, though? It depends what type of question, because there were some questions that he answered lickety-split. It was the philosophical questions where he kind of went off on a tangent. But you ask him very simply, okay, what's your vision for punt returns? Is it Montreal Washington? Is it somebody else, right? On punts, is Corliss Waitman good enough, or do we need to go find somebody else, somebody better, right? You can get to these.
How much does
quickly.
Brandon McManus have left?
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to see competition for McManus? Yeah. My guess is that Rosberg would say yes. Rosberg seemed to be somebody who favored competition on special teams.
And that's how football is built.
Even when you've got the guy, have somebody else in to relieve the reps. I mean, the Ravens have had some kickers in their camps with Justin Tucker, right?
Which is hilarious. But hey, Justin Tucker just goes out and beats him.
Right. But it just keeps a little pressure on, and it also saves Tucker's leg too. It's got a dual benefit there.
Mike Munchak is like Dick LeBeau to me, where you're a Hall of Fame player and a Hall of Fame coach.
How rare is that?
That's I got LeBeau and I got Munchak. Is there anybody else? Like Mike Ditka, maybe?
Mike Ditka,
what you thought of Ditka?
As a pure teacher of the game, that's hard.
That's
rare. Hard to be able to take what you did so well and then have the teaching ability to impart that and take advantage of that experience to your pupils. I mean, it's marvelous. As I've said, the first big mistake of the Nathaniel Hackett era was not bringing back Mike Munchak, because he had to have his guy, had to have Butch Berry, had to have his guy, his buddy, right? Yeah. This isn't about having your buddy. It's about having the best staff. Right. And the other thing, don't forget with D'Amico Ryans is this. He's coached under Kyle Shanahan, and he played much of his career under
Gary Kubiak.
Exactly. right?
So everyone's worried about Houston, and I'll say this: Skunk Life Media wants to hear you swear. I remember the first time I heard Dave Logan say the F word like off air, and I was like, "Oh, that's the greatest thing ever." But anyway, Mace, you'll swear plenty when we're in Vegas tomorrow. But anyway, the Houston thing, and I forget a lot. Mold. He sued Houston when he was there. He sued the team. So everyone's like, he's going to go to Houston. And we've talked about it. He already knows how the sausage is made in one of the worst organizations in the NFL. Okay. And then, oh, yeah, people brought up on Twitter, like, didn't he sue them? I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. D'Amico Ryan sued the Texans.
I was trying to explain to DMAC on coffee break this morning.
Oh, God.
About how, because he's convinced that D'Amico Ryans is going to want to go back to Houston. And I said, don't you understand that just because you've been there doesn't mean you want to go back? And also, he played under different ownership. I mean, he played under Bob McNair. Now you got Cal McNair. Cal McNair doesn't seem to know what he's doing, but I'm sure D'Amico Ryans knows because Cal McNair was around the building, knows what kind of person, what kind of owner he'd be. The reason why D'Amico Ryans might go to Houston is, to go back to what I said earlier, is they have the number 2 overall pick. If they really want to name the quarterback, they can move up with Chicago and get that number 1 selection. So you have a chance to be with a quarterback that you've chosen from day one. That may have some value, and that would certainly buy him probably at least 2 years, more likely 3 down there. So Houston probably has, in terms of where they are division wise, you still got Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars in the division, but I think we can agree they're not. It's not like Mahomes, Herbert, Chiefs, Chargers that you're facing the AFC West. So it's a better landscape around you than the Broncos. Resources will not be an issue. The Texans will spend. That they're not a cheap organization in any way, shape, or form. And you have that resource in terms of at the pick at the top of the draft, or it's number 2 overall, thanks to Lovie Smith. And
the best win he ever had is the Bear for the Bears.
Yep, the late game heroics of Week 18 earlier this month. But you still are in position where you can tie yourself to a quarterback and grow and develop and build everything up. You've got everything on the same page. It's not, oh, we're trying to get a quarterback 1 year, a coach 1 year, GM 1 year. No. You've got everyone. You got everyone kind of tied together in the same boat. That's the appeal of the Houston Texans. If it's ownership, I think he'll tell you he'd rather work for the Penners than Cal McNair. But there are other factors involved with it too.
As Alessandro says, I'm getting that for show.
Yeah.
We haven't quoted super bad enough on this program. I'm going to talk to Steve here. Keep dressing up the first timer, putting lipstick on a pig, something about Sarah Palin. I don't know. Burn 3 times in a row. Enough. Steve, let me tell you something. It's different every time you go around. To say this, it's the first timer and another first timer, doesn't give enough credit to D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico is not Vance Joseph, who had no power, by the way. D'Amico is not Vic Fangio, who's grumpy as the day's long or whatever. D'Amico is not Nathaniel Hackett, who's a goofball and a clown and an embarrassment. Good luck, Jets.
Yeah.
So when you say like it's the same thing over, it's not. It's a new ownership group. It's a situation where you could get the hottest young coach in the league. I choose to look at it much differently because there are a lot of people like Steve, and Steve has his opinion, and hey, get down how you get down, baby. Don't hurt anybody. That's my opinion on everything. So it's like, okay, Steve has an opinion. I happen to be 180 degrees opposite of that because every spin, again, roulette, it's red 3 times in a row. I'm going to go black. Like, it's different every time. Every spin is different.
But there's as many reds as blacks. Your odds are equal. Whereas over the last 10 years, if you've got a coach with prior head coaching experience, you're going to the playoffs 43% of the time compared to 37%.
Well, let's talk about odds then. If you've missed on 3 in a row, right? Let's take Steve's point of view. It's 3 in a row. They missed on 3 in a row. Aren't you due? What are the odds on that? Like,
Well,
wouldn't you be due then? Because you've missed 3 times in a row on first timers?
the odds don't change just because you missed the previous times, because we're taking those odds based on league-wide trends.
Right.
Just you lose 3 coin tosses in a row, it's still 50-50 on the fourth one, right? Doesn't
Right.
change. Doesn't
Right.
change.
Right. Mike says, we are due.
Mhm.
There you go. We are due to wrap it up for today. Tomorrow, I believe you'll be able to join me, Mace. I'll be in Las Vegas, probably sitting in a Starbucks, honestly.
Mhm.
I'll make sure that we have other hosts on alert. But yeah, I believe you'll be able to join us because I'll be in Vegas tomorrow morning. You're coming
Yeah.
tomorrow night, right?
It's basically my last thing before
You leave for the airport.
before I leave for the airport. So yeah, I'm
Do you
sure.
want me to try to get your badge, or you just get it Saturday morning? I
just
suppose
get
I
it
should
set.
ask you off air.
Yeah, I mean the question is, do I need a parking pass to get in the lot before I go get my badge? I would hope not.
They are going to hand out parking passes tomorrow, so I'll ask about
Okay.
a parking pass. Let me see if I can get your parking pass.
Ask about that, and then if I need the
Yeah.
parking pass, I'll just connect with you Friday night. or
I'm
Saturday
sure I
morning.
won't be able to get your credential, although I do know the guy
Yeah.
who runs the whole thing. But anyway, like, I bet I can get your parking pass. This is an off-air conversation.
No one cares about our
the parking
credential
pass.
snafus. The only thing that people care about is that on Saturday morning, you and I are going to be out there watching potential Broncos draft picks.
Oh, and
That's
watching a
what
running back that I
matters.
love
That's
from
what
Utah.
matters.
There's a
Yes.
running back I love from Utah. I wrote about him today, Mace. I'm getting chills talking about it. Denversports.com. Look, I wrote about 3 offensive players I love, 3 defensive players I love, and there's a running back from Utah that everybody needs to know. Shrine Game, Senior Bowl. We are here. Let's go. Orange and blue today. The Crusher. Every day, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. So we've quoted Superbad, Seinfeld, Looney Tunes. Did I get half baked in today? Near the beach. There, I got half baked.
There you go. Half
Yeah. We quote a lot of stuff.
we got a little Seinfeld, right?
Yeah, we got Seinfeld. Check.
Yes.
Yeah. Star Wars. I believe we got Star Wars. Should have Star Wars.
I think
every day.
I thought we did. We should.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned, and as always, stay frosty.